Hello, my name's Don Moore. I'm a glass artist, and I've been asked to contribute a piece of glass art to the 2019 St. Roch Haiti Foundation Gala this year. They've been kind enough to ask me to contribute pieces of glass art in the past. They realize that I'm an award-winning glass artist, but they don't realize that the award that I won was actually for being the most likely to need Band-Aids at the end of a glass project. I am proud of that award, but it is a little bit off the beaten path. For this 2019 Gala, I've decided to contribute a work of stained glass. It's a stained glass panel about 18 inches wide, and the subject matter is a hibiscus flower, which I believe is one of the flowers native to Haiti. I've had quite an enjoyable time making this panel, and I hope that it does well in the silent auction. And I'm making this video just to give people an idea of what goes into making a stained glass panel of this size. The first part of the project is actually drawing out the picture, and I drew this picture of a hibiscus flower, and it's a bit smaller than what the final project is, but I take this and I scan it into the computer, and then I can enlarge it to whatever size I need. I print the finished picture on cardstock that I can cut out and use as template pieces to cut the glass. So my printer is a pretty cheap printer, so it doesn't print as big as I need, so I had to print it in sections and then print each section on cardstock to use for the piece. In the subsequent videos, I'll show each step kind of roughly to give you some idea of how it's done, and I hope you enjoy it. Thank you. I finished printing in segments all of the pattern for the 18-inch panel, and I've cut and pasted them here to get some idea of what the final product might look like and the final size. The next step will be cutting the individual pieces out of the cardstock. Okay, once you've printed out the pattern on cardstock, then we need to cut out each individual piece, but you have to keep in mind that the glass will need to be slightly smaller than the pattern because there's some copper tape that's wrapped around the edges there. So these special scissors will cut the pattern out and take a little strip of paper out to compensate for that. So, so once you get the pattern, then I just carefully cut with these scissors around the edges. And as you do that, you can see it takes a little bit of paper off, and that's about the width of a couple of strips of copper foil tape that you'll see later. You keep cutting each piece out very carefully. And then we have this piece here that we will put on the glass and use that as a template to cut the shape of the glass out for the panel. Here are all the cut pieces now on the original panel to keep track of them all and to make sure I've cut every piece out. The next step will be cutting the glass. So this is the stained glass workshop I use. This side of the bench is for cutting glass and soldering glass. It's a cutting glass station. There's a grinder you use to fine-tune the shape of the glass. There's a glass saw if you need to cut more intricate pieces, and then I solder the glass over at the end of the bench there. On the other side of the bench is where I do my glass blowing with a torch And there's the kiln is that blue structure right there. I'm sorry, my workshop is pretty noisy. The furnace is on, the water's dripping, but hopefully you can hear what I'm saying. One of the important parts of the project is to pick out the colors of the glass. We have a local glass shop in Rockland, Mass. called Whittemore Durgan, and my wife and I went a week or so ago to pick out some of the colors for the hibiscus. I brought my wife with me, Charlene, because she's much better at figuring out colors than I am. So what we came up with were a couple of nice colors. We put them in this newspaper. So we thought for the hibiscus some streaky red glass would be nice. And try and make the petals out of that. Got a couple of pieces of that, and then we got a couple of types of green. One is just regular streaky dark green. Very nice deep green color. And the other is a of an iridescent green. They spray it with a metallic solution when the glass is still hot, and that gives it that kind of sheen. I thought I'd make some of the leaves with this and others with the other regular green, but we'll see as we go along. If you cut the individual pieces of glass, I take the glass, you can take the piece of the cardstock that I printed the pattern on. This is one of the border pieces, and you orient it to the grain or direction of the streaks in the glass, and then I use a glue stick to glue the back of this pattern piece, and then position it on the glass there. And I take a glass score. This is a pistol grip score. It's a grip there, and then I run that down the edge of the pattern piece to put a light score on the glass, and you can hear it. It's a little sound of it scoring the glass. Then there's some special pliers called running pliers that can use to break the glass, and it breaks right along that score, and then you keep doing that for the rest of the piece until you get the glass roughly the shape of the pattern piece. I'll try one more side here. So I get that scored, and then for some of the curved pieces that you may have to do it in bits so that it doesn't cut across the pattern piece and ruin that piece of glass. And once you get it roughly cut to the shape of the glass, then we can bring it to the grinder just next to us here and fine tune the edges of the glass to the pattern piece. This piece of equipment is a grinder. It's has a motor in the base, and it drives this bit. It's like a barrel-shaped bit that has a diamond coating to it, and that as it spins around, we can place the glass up against it and then shave off a little bit of glass at a time so that it exactly matches this pattern piece. The grinder is filled with water. There's a little sponge here that wicks the water up onto the bit to keep it cool while we cut the glass. So I'll show you how we do this piece here. Just put that gets it pretty close to the edge of that piece of paper. Okay. The glass is cut to the shape of that piece of paper, and we can peel the paper off and clean the glue off the glass, and then it'll be ready to put the copper foil around. Once we've cut the glass pieces, here's one sample glass piece from the project, and we put a strip of copper foil tape around the edges. Here's another piece that's all done. You can see the kind of the copper tape that's on the edge there, and the copper tape's going to allow us to solder the pieces once they're together, so it'll make a finished panel. But so the tape comes in different sizes with different color backing. I have a 1/4 inch copper tape here with the black backing, and so you take the piece and you put the tape where the glass edge is centered on it, and then you can gradually wrap the tape around the edge, trying to keep the glass in the center. They make little tape dispensers that will partially automate this, and I've tried those in the past, but I find that it's better, even therapeutic, to do it by hand. So you keep wrapping the tape all the way around. You can pull it back and reposition it if you need to, and once we get to the end, I can pull this little nub off, and then finish the job there. And once you put the tape all the way around, then you can wrap it or press it against each side. Just by hand until a little bit overlaps, and try and get it to where it's about even on both sides. And then you can take this tool here, it's called a FID. They make different versions of this, but I find the simpler the better, and it's just a little plastic stick that you can use to burnish the tape onto the glass. So you just rub it. This helps to adhere the tape and smooth out any little wrinkles on it. But you go around the whole edge first. And then once you get the edge done, then you can put it down and kind of burnish the parts that wrap around the glass there. And then it pretty much firmly attaches this little copper strip to the edge of the glass. So there you have that, and then the next step would be reassembling all these pieces into the panel, and then solder where this copper tape comes together with the next piece. So I've finally finished all of the copper foiling of the glass pieces that I cut out, and now I've assembled them on a board here with these bars to keep everything in place. Now the next step will be to solder the panel, and I have all the tools in place. I have the soldering iron here. I have a flux solution, which is just an acid solution that I'm going to paint on the foil. It helps to clean it and helps the lead to stick to it. This is the flux here. We can pour a little bit more in the container. I have over here a little block that I use to clean the soldering iron. And so I will put the flux all over the place where the foil seams meet, and then start soldering. So I've finished putting all of the flux on the copper foil there. You apply it fairly liberally, and now I'm going to tack solder the panel. So I'm going to take this the solder, which is 60-40, that's 60% tin, 40% lead. That's kind of a standard solder to use, and I'm going to put a little bit all along the seams and in the various gaps here, just to get everything to stick together. So to do that, I'm going to use the flat side of the iron, and I just kind of fill in and paint the copper foil. So this will keep everything in place. I just try and follow all of the seams here. I'm not trying to make it look particularly pretty, but just to get everything together here. I put just enough solder that I need, and not more than that, but with that flux on it, it makes it all flow smoothly, the lead and the tin here. So it makes all the difference than if you didn't have the flux on there. I got the idea of doing stained glass from my dad. He did it years ago, and when I was still doing mostly just woodworking as a hobby. My dad was a general surgeon down in Texas, a little town called Plainview, Texas. That's where I grew up, but after he retired and moved to Cloudcroft, New Mexico, he got the stained glass bug. I think he took a couple of lessons and then started making things. He made kaleidoscopes and Christmas ornaments, and I think he made some window panels. He had one particularly big one that was very nice that was hanging in his home in Cloudcroft, New Mexico. And so when I had one of my early midlife crises and decided I needed something else creative to do, I decided to follow in his footsteps and do some glass art. So he sent me all of his books and videos on stained glass, and I went through those and started small and got some equipment off of eBay, and sort of taught myself how to do these panels. It's amazing what you can find on YouTube also. I'm not sure YouTube was a thing all the way back then. So I made some panels, some sun catchers. I made a a kaleidoscope too, and some Christmas ornaments, and it was a lot of fun. But I decided I wanted to expand the kind of glass art I did, so I started getting into melting glass. So I got a kiln and learned to do what's called kiln forming, and that's similar to stained glass in that you cut out these patterns or pictures, but instead of soldering it together, you would you melt it in a kiln into a blank or a flat disc, and then you can either just use that as a sun catcher or ornament, but if you'd like, you can slump it, which is placing the glass disc on a ceramic mold and putting it back in the kiln, and the glass melts and takes on the shape of the mold, so you can make plates or bowls or vases. There are all kinds of clever things they've come up with, and so I really enjoyed that. Made some jewelry and plates and bowls, and made a lot of Christmas ornaments, but I had, as a kid, had seen people at fairs doing lamp working, which is using the torch and glass rods to make little sculptures, little animals, and I always thought I'd like to do that. So the kiln forming sort of naturally led into doing the glass blowing or lamp working, and that's what I've been doing the last 10 years or so, almost exclusively. I really got addicted to that, but every once in a while I'd make a stained glass panel just to keep the skills up, and recently I've kind of gotten the bug on going back and doing stained glass, and it's very enjoyable, very relaxing. It takes a little longer to finish a project with that than it does with lamp working usually, but the textures of the glass is very nice and satisfying, and you can make almost any pattern that you can draw up, so the creativity is there. Glass art is a very versatile thing. You can really go in almost any direction with it. It has very few limitations, and you just keep practicing at it, and you can really do things that are quite unique. So I'm going to keep doing this for the rest of the panel here, not to bore you. Then we'll come back, we're going to flip it over and then solder the other side. So the panel is flipped over now, and the front side is already quickly tinned or tack fused, and now we're going to do a beading on the back side, a more finished lead seam. And so for that you keep the iron vertical, and you have the solder in front of the iron as you go along this seam, and the lead just naturally beads up. Go a little slower if it seems to be flattening out, and sometimes you have to go over it again. So this area right here is a little flat, so I'll add a little bit more lead to it. So I'll keep doing that for the whole back of the project, and then flip it over and try and do a very careful job on the front. to make it look very nice. I finished beading all of the back side of this, and so now we can flip it over and we can do the same to the front, and that would finish most of the soldering on the main part of the piece here. So the front will flux again, and then put the a new bead of solder on the front there. So now I'm back to the front side of the project, and right now all of the seams are flat because I just quickly tacked them together. So now I'm going to try and put a nice looking bead of lead along all of these seams. They work a little more slowly and meticulously, and so I'll do a couple here on video, and then I won't bore you with the rest of it, but it'll take about maybe 15-20 minutes to do this whole side. So I finished putting all of the lead beading, all the soldering on the panel, and you can see that this is the front part of the panel, that all the lead is nicely beaded up on all of the seams there. I also took the liberty off camera of putting on the zinc border. This gives it a little bit more finished look, but the process of trying to cut those and put them on is not pretty. It's sort of like making sausage, so I spared you those details. But the next step is going to be to clean off the zinc. I found a set of instructions that we clean it with a little vinegar, and then we will be able to put a chemical treatment on that and the lead that will turn them black, that will give it a little bit more of a classic look. So, so I'm going to clean the zinc first with the vinegar, and then we'll show you putting on it's called the patina, the little chemical treatment. So I have a bit of vinegar in this container here. I'm going to take a little Scotch-Brite pad and dunk that in there, and then I'm going to try and clean all the residue off the zinc. That's going to allow these chemicals to more evenly permeate it, or to color it. I don't know if this is like the same process with vinegar that lets eggs take on Easter egg colors, but it seems to work. I tried a little sample piece of zinc to see how it would do, and it seemed to do okay. So here goes nothing. You can kind of see the zinc finish being cleaned up a little bit with this. So I'll finish cleaning this for a while, and then we'll come back to put the chemical on. So I've put a bit of this zinc patina treatment, the chemical, in the cap here.
and then we'll see how it goes brushing this on. Kind of see that it starts to a little bit of a black finish to this zinc. We'll try and let it sit on there for a while, hoping to get a more of an even color. It's kind of a pewter color. This is specifically for the zinc, so the lead that's on this doesn't color up as much, and we've got a specific or different chemical to color the lead on this. Excuse me. So I'll keep working on this. I'll let it sit for a bit and hopefully to get a nice look, and then next time we'll come back we'll do the lead part. So now the border, the zinc border, looks pretty good. It's kind of a, not completely uniform, but not a bad color. Makes it look a little more antique-y. And so I've got a different solution here that's made particularly for the lead, and so now I'll paint these things. You'll see this will turn a little bit darker black here. I think the kind of more matte black color on these things tends to make the seams and the lead bead look a little bit more uniform, and you don't see some of the little bubbles and wrinkles and all that kind of stuff in it. I think it may be a little bit more organic looking too, for things like flowers or birds or landscapes. And they make different patina. There's one to give it a copper color if you wanted to give it kind of a coppery color. It doesn't come out quite as uniform in color, I think, as the black does. And if you want it silver, you can just leave it the color of lead, and they make different polishes you can put on, and of course clean the glass up afterwards. So once we get this all painted, then I'll give it a good rinse and buff it a little bit, and I'm going to put a chain on it. I put a couple of loops up top that we can put chains on, and that will help hang it depending on where you want to put it. You can get a couple of good strong suction cups. You could put it in a window or hang it from wire above the window if you want it to be a little more sturdy. You could set it in an easel also, and in a sunny spot, and let the light come through. Well, it looks fairly even there. Okay, I may let that sit for a bit. I have to decide if I want to do the same treatment to the back of it, but I think that's looking pretty good. I'll raise it up here for you to see a little bit better, but we'll get all that stuff washed off here, and I think it's going to look pretty good. So here we have the final product, this hibiscus flower native to Haiti. It's been a thoroughly enjoyable experience for me, and hope whoever wins this at the silent auction will enjoy it. Maybe it'll inspire them to make a stained glass panel. So this is Don Moore for the St. Roch Haiti Foundation Gala. Thank you very much.